Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. So for Flour It Up Friday, I am making sourdough discard pizza crust. A little different than the recipe I found on King Arthur's website because I'm using a little less sourdough discard and more yeast. And a little bit more flour. So depending on your sourdough starter, I find if it's a little looser than mine is, you might need a little bit more liquid for it, or if it's a little bit more fluid than mine is, you might need a little less. So depending on your sourdough starter, I found that this recipe works good if you know how to adjust it a little bit, and you might need, of course, a little bit of flour depending on your environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is bloom my yeast in the warm water, sugar, and of course the yeast. And I put it in a warm place, which is my oven with the light on, and I will put the recipe down in the description box below. So while my yeast is blooming, a separate mixing bowl, I'm going to measure out my flour as well as I'm going to measure out my salt. And I'm going to mix the two together, just using a fork. If you have a whisk, whatever you have, your hand, you can do it, and just make sure the salt is distributed evenly throughout the flour. So now I'm just making a well in the middle. This is one of my best recipes that I have for using up my sourdough discard and not just throwing it away. So I have about a half a cup of sourdough discard, and if you will notice, see how thick my sourdough discard is? I've seen other sourdoughs that are very loose or more loose than mine is. So that's why I actually add a little bit of extra, in this case water, just to make it a little bit more fluid than it is. So I'm just mixing those two together up to a cup of sourdough discard, so to speak, because that's what the recipe called for. It's a cup. So I did a half a cup of sourdough discard and a half a cup of water just to make it a little bit more fluid, and I'm just adding those two together. So now that my yeast has bloomed, as you can see, it is more than doubled in size. I don't know if you can see that. I probably should have taken a side little picture for you. And I'm just going to add it into my flour sourdough mix. So make sure I get all that yeast and water and sugar out. And I'm going to mix this into a shaggy dough. Now, if you need more flour at this point, then add more flour. I added in almost 3 cups of flour. Now, I can get away sometimes with 2.5. It all depends on how warm or how humid your particular kitchen is. So now just mix it in. You want to get all that flour incorporated, and it will come out to sort of like a shaggy dough, and we're going to knead this on a floured surface, or you can do it in the bowl. I just find for this, my floured surface on the countertop is a little bit more room for me to knead this particular dough. So I'm going to knead the dough on my floured surface for about 5 minutes. You can also do this in a stand mixer if you choose to. I just did it by hand. It's quite easy just to do it by hand. Getting it into a pretty smooth bowl. It doesn't have to be exactly smooth like you were making bread, but it is smoother than it was earlier. So what I'm going to do now is divide it into 2 portions and put part in this ice cream container that I saved. This is a little bit of olive oil that I'm putting in here so it doesn't stick to the container. And this can go in the freezer, obviously, because it was an ice cream or a sherbet container. Or you can put it in the fridge for a couple of days if you don't want to use it right away. Or you can put it in your freezer for up to several months and just defrost it when you want to use it. So I'm just rolling it into a bowl, and I'm going to put the bigger piece because that's going to make dinner. And I'm actually make a small personal pan pizza to show you what it looks like when it's already baked off into a pizza. So I'm just coating the top with that olive oil, and I'm going to actually push it down because it will rise, and I just don't want it to pop the top off, because if it's let the air in, it can actually dry out, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to put this in the fridge, and then once I'm getting my stove up to temp, I'm putting my cast iron frying pan. This is an 8-inch frying pan. It's a small, what I call personal pan pizza. And while that's heating up, I'm going to roll out my pizza crust to about 8 inches. You don't have to be perfect with this. And we're going to put our toppings on, because this is mine and I only want cheese. That's what we're going to put on it. Now, this next step, I've done it and then I've not done it, but I haven't seen any real difference in doing it and not doing it. So it's up to you whether you want to do this or not. So what I do is I just take a fork and I actually poke a couple of holes in the crust itself. And I also put the crust on a piece of parchment paper. That just helps me interchange the pizzas out of the cast iron faster. And I'm using my home canned pizza sauce for this particular pizza. And this, actually doing individual pizzas like this, we get to decide exactly how we want it. Some like more pizza sauce on it, some like less, some like cheese, some like mushrooms. So we get to personalize it. That's why I like doing these personal sizes. It takes a little bit longer because I don't have any cast iron pans. So once I get the sauce on, I'm going to sprinkle on some DIY pizza spices, and that's basically something that I've mixed up together: onion, garlic, Italian seasonings, etc. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on the top of that. And then this is a little secret that I do. This is some Parmesan cheese. I actually put that down first. I think it gives the pizza a little bit more flavor. And then I'm going to sprinkle on the mozzarella. And I forgot to take the mozzarella out of the freezer, so it is still frozen as I'm putting it on. You will see some chunks in there. Yeah, it'll melt. And then on the top of that, I put olive oil. And then into the 400-degree oven it goes. And depending on how big or how thick your pizza is, will depend on how long it actually cooks for. And this one actually cooked for about 12 minutes. And then if it doesn't brown on the top, you can always use the broiler to brown it on the top a little bit more. So this is why I like the parchment paper, because I could take it out and then I could pop the next pizza in the oven in that smaller frying pan. And as you can see, the bottom is nice and brown, and this is what it looks once we cut it. And I can put some garlic and onion powder on the top if they like that. So this is what it looks like from the side. This is one of our versions of what we call fast food, and hot and ready from the oven. Quick and easy pantry meal that we do probably about twice a month. Stay safe and keep prepping. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos.